Welcome to West of Tulsa. I'm CJ Ward, and we are broadcasting from Ventura, California. And can you hear the echo? Echo?
You're hearing an echo?
I'm hearing an echo. You know what it is? You know, you think it's a technical problem, but it's not. What I'm
okay.
saying is we have so many empty seats. Oh, I got you, Dan, didn't I? Yeah.
I didn't quite pick up
No,
on that.
I saw that.
Yeah,
coming.
you saw
I'm
it
looking
coming.
for real technology problems here.
That's how technical that guy is. So we don't have Beth. She's stopped doing her job, making money.
Again.
What's up with that? And Helm, you've been getting questions about Helm, whether he's on the show anymore.
Yes, people have been asking me, is he still on the show? And unfortunately, he's still on the show.
He is, yeah. He is, unfortunately. He is on the show. You know, we changed, I think we talked about it before in one of the previous shows. We changed out the studio, and because of that, we had to change our schedule a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's thrown it off. We were shooting on weekends at one point. Now we're weekdays, but oh well. So that explains why half the crew is here. They are coming back. They're alive. Otherwise, we're going to be charged with something like,
Sure.
you know,
As far as we know, they're still alive.
As far as we know, they're still alive.
Suspects.
Yeah, I saw Beth this morning, so she looked
Oh,
good.
good. Okay.
Yeah.
She looked good.
Don't forget our tip line. You can contact us. You can go to westoftulsa.com, click on the tip line link, fill it out, send it in. We'd love to, one, hear your story, and two, possibly have you in studio. All right. Speaking of in studio, our guest today, David Neel, Executive Director of the Murphy Auto Museum in Oxnard, California. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. You've got a Tulsa connection you were telling us just before the show.
I do. I have an Oklahoma connection. So both sides of my family, my father and my mother, were both born in Oklahoma. So my father was born in Collinsville, which is north of Tulsa, not west of Tulsa. And my mother was born in Elk City, which is west of Tulsa. And both sides of the family moved out west during the Great Depression.
Okay.
And they wound up in Arizona, and then my folks met in college in Flagstaff in the late 40s, and then 5 of us came along later.
Do you consider yourself an Okie?
I went back to Oklahoma to go to school, and I have a lot of friends there, a lot of connections. In fact, I'll be going back very soon to take care of some family heirloom mineral rights stuff, and I plan on hooking up with a lot of my friends that I made when I was living there. I lived there for 9 years, so I was in
You sound like an Okie.
Edmond. Well, if I start talking about it, I'll start sounding like an Oklahoman.
All right.
Yeah,
Let's get some of that going.
But 4 years in Edmond and 5 years in Tulsa. So your show, when I first heard about it west of Tulsa, I started tuning in. I was saying, oh, maybe it's being broadcast from Tulsa.
Yeah, home. You were born to be here is basically what you're
yeah.
saying. Yeah. All right. Yeah, and so you've been executive director of the Murphy Auto Museum for how many years?
11 years.
Now, you actually took over from Mr. Murphy.
I took over from the founder, Dr. Murphy. That is correct.
So explain to us a little bit history. How did that all come about?
So Dr. Murphy was a Ventura neurosurgeon, and he retired in 2002. But since 1975, he had been collecting Packard cars. That was his passion. And he decided he wanted to put his cars in a museum since he had a lot of free time now. And then he got some of his doctor friends to keep their cars there. And through that, and it was actually down the road from where west of Tulsa the production studio is. It was on Palma.
Yeah.
And he had cars there. And then later he moved it to Oxnard, and it was in a big warehouse that used to be a building that supported the space program. And so high ceilings, a lot of glass, very mid-century. But he didn't want to do it anymore. He got to the point where he needed to spend time with his wife, who since has passed. She had some health issues. And so I took over the museum not really knowing how to run a museum, but I'm a business person in my real job. And so I understand business, and I understand, permits and money in, money out. And I had a car, and I stored it with him. And then he and I became friends, and I was telling him about this underworld of vintage camping and vintage trailers. And he was asking me lots of questions about that. And he said, maybe you could have a vintage event here to help us raise money for the museum. So in June of 2013, we had our first trailer show at the Murphy Auto Museum, and we filled the parking lot full of trailers, and there were over 1,000 people.
I was there. It was unbelievable. I didn't expect that many people.
Mm-hmm. It was
Crazy.
Phenomenal.
Yeah,
People like trailers.
Yeah.
People love mid-century. They love trailers. They love nostalgia. They love seeing things that they had when they were kids, or their neighbors had something like that. And the trailer community, vintage trailer community, was and is a real thing. It's huge. And we can talk about that with respect to how many trailer rallies there are. In California, there are a lot of them because the weather tends to be nicer. Other parts of the country, they tend to ramp up in the spring, and then they shut off in the summer, and then the fall they kick in again.
Kind of like the regular car season, the classic car season for most places.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But he through that one show in June of 2013, he had more revenue came through the museum that month than any show he'd ever done. And that's when he got the idea, maybe this young fella has a lot of good ideas. He certainly has youthful energy. And he suggested I take over the museum. And he explained to me that there's no assets the museum owns. It's all cars that are owned by private collectors. But I thought it'd be fun. I was ready to try something different.
Sure.
And so against my wife's judgment and warning flags, I went for it. And that happened. I took over officially on January 1st, 2014.
Wow. And overall, you've enjoyed the process, I would imagine. I mean, because we've sat in enough board meetings and I've watched you plan stuff, and you've got a passion for it. You really do.
I do. I love it.
Yeah. And you can tell. How do you explain this to somebody? Like, yeah, I run a museum. I mean, it's a challenge. Challenge in so many ways. Talk about that a little bit.
So I don't go out and tell people I own a museum because, that's not important. But occasionally people will say, what are your hobbies? Or certainly when I'm at the museum, people say, well, who are you? And I'm the guy who runs the place. And people automatically think I own the cars. Oh, gosh, you own all these cars. No, I don't own any of the cars. The cars are owned by private collectors, and I explain that to them, that they pay money to keep the cars there. But we're a 501c3, and what that means is the people who keep the cars there get a nice tax deduction letter from me at the end of the year because we are, via the IRS and the county of Ventura, we're a museum. And so people... their storage fee actually the donation. Now there's an element, of course, you have to charge for the storage, so they don't get 100% of the money as a write-off, but it's a legitimate write-off. And when people realize that's how the museum works and they want to understand more, well, then why did you do it? What's your involvement? I say, well, I like cars. I generally am pretty chatty, so I like to talk to people and understand, what their thing is. I really like kids. Kids are a lot of fun. And we have stuff at the museum that really engages children. We have a model train set there. We have some cars you can sit in, little sprint cars, and get your picture taken. We have a diecast collection. We have a slot car set that we just received last year, which the kids just are overjoyed.
It'll blow your mind when you see this slot car. That's amazing.
And so it's all those things that I really enjoy doing and being a part of. But because it's a 501c3 and because I'm an officer, there's no compensation. And that's fine. I never took it on thinking there would be. And so you spend a lot of time running the place outside of the operating hours that we're open. So we're open every Saturday and Sunday. But throughout the week, I still get mail. I have to pay bills. Money comes in. I have to record it. I have to put it in the bank. I have to reconcile the checkbook. 2 or 3 in the morning, about 2-3 times a year, I get a call from the alarm company because the alarm's going off. And so I, jump in my car and I run down at 20 minutes to Oxnard, and it's usually the wind is pushing the roll-up door and it's causing the sensors to go off, or there's a spider or a bug that has crossed the sensor. Occasionally we have some door rattlers because I can watch the camera. I have a remote camera, and every now and then the homeless come up and rattle the doors. And just
to mess with you? Who knows?
Yeah, well, they want to know what's in there, and half the time they're strung out on something they don't know. But it's enough to make the alarm go off. And then so I couldn't not go down there.
Sure.
So that's part of the joy of running a museum.
Yeah. By the way, if you hear a hum, can you hear it?
That's more than a hum.
Is it?
It's vibration.
Yeah, maybe it's... Okay, so
sounds like a jackhammer next door.
I know. We have not had this problem since we started, right?
No.
But we got a building next door, and apparently they're doing construction. Yeah, new neighbors.
Yeah.
And they're doing construction. So if you start hearing a jackhammer, I know. when the jackhammers start, well, I'll have to speak a little louder.
I think Dan should go over there and say, "Hey, could you stop working? We're shooting a podcast."
If you guys
Very
want
important one.
if you guys want
Man.
to pass the hat around, usually $20. It's like go get
Yeah.
a case of beer, guys.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
give us an hour, and
That'd be great if we had $20.
well, yeah, yeah. That's why I said pass the hat around. It'd be like $5 a piece.
Oh,
you know,
my
maybe we
God.
could swing that.
All I know is Pat McAfee doesn't have this problem, does he?
No, he does not.
No, he does not.
But it's
All
also
right.
Pat McAfee.
So sadly, you just had to put out a press release just in the last week or so that the Murphy's going to close.
Correct.
Unless somebody can come along and save it.
Correct. So we were in a lease at the old building that the lease ran out, and I tried to re-up the lease, and the guy put us on month to month because he said, I'm going to sell the building, but don't worry, the building's broken. It's a derelict. No one's going to buy this place. And within 5 months, he said, I'm kicking you out.
Wow.
So we had to go from a 28,000 square foot space to a space half the size, sign a new lease at that space. And we got moved in the tail part of 2019, and we're getting the permits done. And then COVID hit. So then we were shut down for a year.
Yeah.
And then once we could open again, we had to do it with half the capacity. We had to, per the fire marshal, we couldn't have the full capacity. But I knew when I signed the new lease, that was 5 years, that in July of 2024, I wasn't going to be in the museum business anymore.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to keep doing it. And for probably 2 years, I've been asking our board that it's coming, and please be prepared and find someone to take over. And the board has tried, and they couldn't find anyone within themselves or anybody in the car community.
CJ,
to
aren't
take
you
over.
on the board?
I am on the board.
What's the problem, bro?
I don't know. I was going to ask Dave. I mean, he's probably more connected than I am. I know I don't have the time to do it. Look, I mean, I will say this. I know how much time goes into it. Because I've watched this guy here who's done an amazing job, by the way. I want to say thank you because until you see what it takes, the commitment it takes, the time, the energy, the passion, and a whole lot of other things I'm not going to get into, but I mean, you got to be committed to it, and you have been. So thank you very much. But otherwise, the Murphy wouldn't have lasted as long as it has. That's on you. You've been able to make that happen.
It probably would have gone away in 2014 or so.
So if there's somebody out there listening to this and they want to run a museum, they could do it.
A car museum, an auto museum.
An
Auto,
auto
yeah.
vintage trailer. It has a little bit of everything to
Okay.
it. So
Okay.
that's why when I say it's, it has vintage automobiles. It's got some classics. It's got trailers. It's got the trains. It's got the slot cars. It's got a lot of memorabilia.
Memorabilia.
Yeah, I mean, Andy Granatelli's got his own room there. I mean,
A lot of stuff
Yeah,
from
he's got
Andy
a,
Granatelli.
he's got a ton of stuff there. So it's a little bit of everything. And if you've never been there, you should check it out. But you could run the place. Not you, but somebody else. You've already done it.
So whoever that someone is, they need to raise their hand pretty quick because
Yeah.
I've notified the car owners. They were the first people I notified.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are going to take their cars out and go somewhere else. So it's not too late to tell them, oh, you can keep them here. But then there's also quite a few who've said, it's time to sell the car. And so I've actually made a document that I have down at the museum effective last weekend of the cars that are for sale. And these are long-term ownership cars. We have one car that's been the same family since new, 1965.
Is this the Corvette?
No, that
Is
that
it,
one.
that's what I've looked at that car for years. I love it.
That one's not, but it's the 356 that's down the corner.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
All right.
They're
all right.
ready to move that car along.
Wow.
Yeah.
They've got some great cars there. So if you're looking for a long term, I mean, let's. The first choice would be to keep the museum open and let the car stay there. But if you're interested in a car, that's where you want to go because they've got some nice ones.
They have some really, really nice cars. I'm putting a few other things on there that have already sold. I put some lifts on there last weekend. We have 4 lifts, and 2 of them went like that.
Really?
Because everyone wants 4-post lifts.
Yeah.
No one wants to pay for a new one because they're super, super expensive. But ours are so lightly used. They just go up and they go down about twice a year. And so 2 of the 4 have already been sold. So things like that.
Wow.
Everything that's in there's got to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh boy. So hurry if you have an interest in running the Murphy Auto Museum and name it after yourself, right?
You could, yeah.
Yeah, the Gabe's Auto Museum. You could do that. Gabe.
Totally.
Yeah.
No one's interested in the cars that I want to curate, so it's all right.
Yeah.
Dan, you could have your own auto museum.
All Corollas. All the time. I want to have a Corolla museum.
Things are changing.
Yeah.
So, do you think that anything would change if because it sounds like maybe the museum is not as profitable as it should be? Was that a big driving factor to why you're kind of like, I'm done, or for you it's just I'm done?
For me, it's just I'm done. Now there are some economic realities that have hit, and that is everybody knows that insurance has gone through the roof, and it certainly is the same in our case. Our insurance has gone up 40%.
Wow.
And it's liability insurance, which is slip and fall. But then we also have garage keepers insurance, that we have a blanket policy for the cars that are in there that don't belong to us, but we move them around from time to time. And if one car contacted another car, or if we took a car to a car show on behalf of a customer, which we've done, and we were involved in an accident, that covers us. So insurance has really gone up. And then the landlord, if we were to continue the lease, a new 5-year lease, it's not incremental adjustment like it's been for 5 years. It's a monumental increase because he needs to get market value for that space. And so whoever would take over, that would be the first thing they get to deal with is those
Rent
enormous
increase.
new costs.
Yeah.
And then you got to get more cars in there. Now we're fortunate because the museum does have some cars we own. So it seems like November, December of every year, we get people calling, want to donate something, and they always are in a rush, which makes sense because at the end of the year, they're looking at their tax situation and they realize they can get more for the vehicle as a write-off than they can for on the market getting cash, and they need the deduction more than they need the cash. And so currently we have 7 vehicles or things in there that we own, and those get converted to cash, and that pays rent for a month or whatever the value of the car. But those assets would stay with the museum if someone were to take over. But at this late hour, I doubt that's going to happen.
Right. So we had the Mullen close.
Mm-hmm.
The Mullen Auto Museum, which stunning museum. A lot of is it French?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of French, beautiful automobiles. They closed in February.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going on?
Yeah.
I mean, we know the reality of what you've been dealing with, the Murphy, but then you got also a place like the Mullen that closes. And do you know much about what happened with the Mullen and why they had to close?
So in the Mullen's case, Peter Mullen, very nice man, I had met him, he passed away. And that's all his collection. And it's just a matter of nothing in place to continue it the way it is. And so a few of those cars were pre-sold, but then there was a party there recently on a Sunday night. A big auction company came in and a big catered event, and they were showing off some of the cars that are going to be cataloged and sold. And that amazing one-of-a-kind collection is going to be dispersed to the world, and they'll never be back in the same together again in one spot. Those are all going to go to private collections.
And I'm wondering, is this part of maybe a trust that they had to be sold off, or was there? You may not know this, but was there a point where somebody could have stepped in and taken over for Mr. Mullen and kept the collection together, and that just didn't happen? Almost like what you've been faced with.
So I'm not sure the details exactly, other than he owned those cars. And so perhaps there was nothing in place for a family to continue because they also owned the building.
Okay.
And so that used to be the Otis Chandler building. Otis Chandler, the LA Times.
LA Times, yeah.
He had a big collection of his own cars and motorcycles. And I was there one time and saw his collection. So maybe someone will take over some car collection somewhere and move it up to Oxnard.
Yeah.
I have been receiving a lot of free advice and comments about what I should be doing with respect to the museum. I should be contacting these celebrities that everyone's heard of and ask them to get involved. I should be contacting larger car museums in the area that everyone knows and tell them they need a satellite shop. Yeah. Those are all good ideas, but that's probably not a reality that is going to happen. Mm-hmm. I have spoken to the city of Oxnard. I spoke to them actually a couple of years ago about this. And so they knew this was coming. It just was ironic that it happened right after the Mullen.
Right.
And it's very sad for the city of Oxnard because the Mullen brings in people from around the world. It's obvious because if you go there, which I've been there many times, you talk to people and they've come to California to see car museums. And a lot of people are from Europe who come out to see those cars. We have people that come to see us from out of the country, but they're bolting on a visit from the Mullen. Then they come to us the same day. But that aside, we have a lot of people who come to our museum within a year. So we keep a record because we ask people to sign in just so we know. So we have about 10,000 people annually come through our little museum.
Yeah.
And people come to see the museum. They eat in town. Chances are they probably rent a hotel room somewhere in Oxnard, either Collection or somewhere off Esplanade or somewhere. And so, we, in our little way, we drive a little bit of commerce to the city of Oxnard, but every little bit helps. And so between us and the Mullen, those car freaks who come to these museums won't have a reason to come to Oxnard for that anymore.
Yeah, it's a blow. And I'm sure you're probably connected to some extent with other museums around the country. Is this a trend, or is it just something that we just happen to see here? It just happens to be coincidence that the Mullen closes and then you close. What is it regionally, nationally? Do you even know?
No, I would say in our case it's coincidental.
Okay.
Any car museum around the country does have the issue of insurance. Now, maybe they fund their operation differently than ours, but I think the fact that two in Oxnard are will be closed by year's end is just coincidence.
Okay. Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
So one of the other things you talked about, I guess we've talked about the museums. And let's talk about, and you touched on it, your love. You love classic cars, but you really love trailers.
I really love trailers.
Vintage trailers.
And you said that the trailers is what got you into the museum.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, there's 5 of us, and my parents were teachers, which meant we were always broke. We lived in Southern California, and we would tent camp, which when you're little, it's great. But when you have teenage brothers and sisters or parents, they don't necessarily like sleeping on the ground. So my grandfather, when he retired, he bought a travel trailer. And my dad convinced him that we needed to have it in the summertime. And so we would use my grandfather's trailer and we would camp in that thing. And we went all over the Western U.S. in the summertime. And I would see these Airstreams going by. And I thought, man, those are interesting. Those are very pretty trailers. And this is through the eyes of a child from like 5 years old up to probably 8 or 9. And I always was into Matchbox and Hot Wheels cars, ever since I was born, basically, like anybody really. But I really had a thing for these trailers. So I was able to get my first vintage trailer in 2005. I still have it. And we've camped in it for many, many, many years. But around 2007, the Ventura County Star found out about me, and they ran a feature story called Towing Vintage with Vintage, because I had and I still have a 63 Chevrolet pickup.
Yeah.
And this lady came out with a photographer, asked me all about camping, and I said, we just like the old stuff. And we like to camp in the old stuff, and we're in a forest of big gel-coated motorhomes that cost $100,000, maybe more. And that story ran in the Star, and they interviewed another guy in the same story who I'd never met before. And this is back when people still had landlines. The guy got my phone number, and he called me that afternoon at the house. He says, "Hi, my name is Craig, and we should meet because I was the guy who had the Galaxy and the Shasta trailer in the article." So we met, and he said, "You've never heard of a vintage camping rally?" I said, No idea. We just like doing what we do with our family. Back then, I had one son. We have 2 now. And he convinced me I should go to a vintage camping show. And I said, "Okay, what do I have to bring?" He said, "Well, just bring what you have." And so we did. It was just outside of Ojai. It was at the Lake Casitas up there. And I found my tribe. There was probably 50 trailers, which is small. 50 is a very small rally.
Wow.
But I found my tribe. And there were people just like us who had old trailers of any make. It didn't have to be an Airstream. And most were being pulled by old cars. And the bug bit. And then I started attending more rallies. And I was attending a rally in Pismo, which was and still is the largest trailer rally in the world. There's over 320 trailers. It's every May. So it'll be coming up May of 2024, very, very soon. And I thought, this is so cool. We should have more rallies. So being the kind of person I am, kind of like to take charge, I came up with a rally in September in Buellton called the Buellton Vintage Trailer Bash.
Yep.
And the first year, which was 2009, I couldn't get 60 trailers. But every year the word spread, and I have been selling out the year before for the next year because people just re-up each year. But that's another thing I gave up because that's a lot of work. So I was doing that along with the museum, along with my real job, and I realized I just have to let some stuff go. So my last rally for Buellton was last year, and it's now in the hands of a very capable couple who are going to continue on. So,
Wow.
But that's how I had met Dr. Murphy, because I kept a Mustang with him, as I had said earlier, and he needed help generating revenue for some kind of show. He had the Corvette show, the Corvair show, muscle car show, but just couldn't really get a lot of turnout. And I mentioned vintage trailers, and then boom, that's how it happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I went out to Buellton for the first time and I saw how many people, it was like literally like stepping back in time because everybody is totally into it. A lot of people are dressed in costume. The trailers are laid out. It's like going back to Lucy and Desi kind of days, you know. It really is fun, and everybody's totally into it. And they got their dogs, and they're sitting in recliners and lawn chairs, and they're toting back little drinks, and they're going to be there for 2 or 3 days, right?
Correct. So people roll up on Thursday and they go home on Sunday, but some people come from far away, some even out of state. And so they'll get to the park before the show actually starts. They'll get to the park the weekend before because it's such work to get everything out there. They'll plan their vacation around it. And the shows have always been themed every year. And last year we had Carnival on the Midway theme. And so we took one of the streets of Flying Flags RV Park, and we transformed it into a Midway at the Carnival. And we had a strong man. We had all the games, like, the ring
That's so
toss,
cool.
stand a
I want to
bottle,
go to this.
all this stuff.
I don't even have a trailer anymore. You got me sold. I'm like, this sounds awesome.
It is fun. It really
It's
is.
insane. And so the theme for 2024 is steampunk.
Oh, that's cool.
That'll be wild.
Yeah.
And so, and there's a Facebook site for this rally, and you can watch the Facebook site, and people are already figuring out what they're going to do for their costumes.
This is like a Comic-Con for trailer people. Like the cosplay, and they're kind of getting into that. That's really cool. So my first question about because it's vintage trailers, right?
Correct.
What qualifies as vintage? Is it the same like cars?
No. So my rule was it has to be 1980 or before.
Okay.
If it's past that, no. And occasionally I would get someone who would plead with me to make an exception, and depending what the exception is. But there are so many people who own trailers that are pre-1980 that there's enough people to fill the rally, and the older the better.
Okay. So even if the years keep going on, even though it's the 80s, you still kind of feel like it's a time period. It's not just that the fact that it's old. It's just a certain era of trailer.
The problem with post 1980, everything starts to become fiberglass, or it starts to become that corrugated sheet steel, and there's really no personality. They're all made by one big conglomerate.
They
out
all
of
kind
Indiana.
of look. They all kind of look the same.
They all look the same.
It's like Jayco and all those things, and so
So
on.
what if it was, because they make new Airstreams that look like the old Airstreams? Would those qualify or no?
So I get a lot of flack from the Airstream people because they know I'm an Airstream guy.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I'm a trader. It's like, well, you have a couple of old Airstreams, and you understand that Airstreams are iconic. You understand that Airstreams have been around since 1936. You should let us bring our 2019 or 2020 Airstream. And I think, well, you could probably get away with it, but at the heart, the vintage trailer community knows that you're cheating.
Yeah.
Now, people who come in off the street, because we always have an open house, they may not know the difference because the Airstreams kind of look the same.
Yeah.
But to the heart of the vintage trailer people, you owe it to them
Yeah.
to keep it genuine and real.
Sure.
Yeah.
All you need to do is look inside. I mean, when you look at the interior, it's like the modern Airstreams. They look just like they're super high end, but everything's modern and
You
so
got a
on.
TV in there playing video games. I was like, oh, maybe that's not vintage.
Actually, it doesn't even take that. All you have to do is walk up to some of these trailers, just stick your nose right at the door and go, and you know how old that thing
New
is.
trailer
They
smell,
just have
right?
that smell to them, and it's like, okay, no, this is a vintage trailer. Am I correct with
You
that
are
one?
correct. And the
Yeah.
other thing, you know it's a vintage trailer because the high probability it doesn't have a potty.
Oh,
So
Yeah,
so
very true.
yeah, so that's another dead giveaway.
Yeah. I mean, look, if somebody's listening to this and they want to go see one of these, I mean, it's next month, and it's at Buellton still. You're just not
Okay,
running it, but it's there.
So
right?
there's one coming up in May of 2024. That's in Pismo.
Oh, Pismo. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
And then, okay, so that's May. Then July, there is the Elks Lodge in Santa Barbara. That's a small one, but that always runs along with the big car show that's at the front of the Elks Lodge. And so there's a nice trailer show at the Elks Lodge in July. And then September is the big Buellton show.
Okay, that's it.
September, it's like the second or third weekend of September.
what kind of cars or vehicles are usually pulling these trailers? Because it sounds like if they're getting really into it, they're going to get time period cars. Is that correct?
Yes. So it's a lot of wagons.
Yeah.
I'm a wagon freak. I've got
Yeah.
Oh,
several
Helm is
myself.
so stupid for not
Yeah.
coming to the show today.
Hey, what am I wearing?
Yeah. Oh,
There you
yeah,
go.
There you go.
Wagon
Yeah.
Estate. Yep.
Yeah, and if we want to really get wonky, I'm a Jeep snob.
Oh, okay.
So I have a couple of old Wagonaires. I have a J10, which is a pickup, not a wagon, and then I have a Checker
Oh.
wagon, and I tow my trailer with. I think you've seen the Checker.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's cool.
Is
Is that the burgundy one? It's like a
Yeah.
deep burgundy.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Is that as
beautiful.
in
Oh,
checker cab or
Yeah.
no?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is checker
Yeah.
cab made wagon.
Same people.
It's a
made
marathon.
wagons.
Is it a
It's
marathon?
Checker marathon.
Marathon.
That is
That's
correct.
what it
CJ.
is. What's that? Should I shut up?
You forgot something again.
What did he drive here?
Yeah.
Yeah. What'd you drive here?
I wanted to go get a museum car,
Okay.
but it was kind of misty and rainy. So I will say that I have a Jeep.
See, he's on brand.
Yeah.
It's just not a vintage Jeep. But I'm staying loyal. And my son, who is I'm very proud of my oldest son. He's an officer in the Navy. He has a Jeep Patriot,
Oh, nice.
and I helped him buy that car right out of high school as he was going into college. And I told him you need to buy a manual because that's a lost art,
Surprised
Yeah.
they even offered it in
Yeah.
the manual.
and you
still.
never have to worry about your car getting ripped off. If you
That's
have,
true.
If you have an auto.
Was it millennial.
Millennial car alarm.
So true.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
one of the Studebaker's yours too, right? That has that weird.
Oh, I have a 1963 Studebaker Wagonaire.
That's it. The Wagonaire,
Which
That
is a
so cool.
For anybody who's into Studebakers out there, it's technically it's a Lark. That
Yeah,
was their model, but when it had a sliding roof, it was called a Wagonaire. So it's
And the top of the roof slides back. It's
Yeah.
Dang, that's so cool.
It is
have
really
you seen
cool.
one?
Uh-uh.
Yeah. If
Really
you think
cool.
if you think where kids used to ride in the back of station wagons,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm one of them.
Studebaker did the same thing, except that roof would push toward the middle of the car,
Yeah.
so it was
Now
a
that's
convertible.
pretty baller right there.
Yeah, and I've got
What-
one of
what
those.
year is it?
A 63.
Yeah,
And-
it's really cool.
And that's a 3-speed. That's a
So
3-speed
cool.
column.
And
So
you,
you
and you
gotta
still
come-
have that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I drove it over this weekend. I
He
was
has to come
driving
back when we have a follow up wagon show. You're coming on to talk
Yeah.
about your wagons.
Well, you know,
and Jeff
I
Higgins
was,
fixes
just,
it.
I was just
Yeah.
thinking about this. If this vintage trailer thing is such a cool thing, and they're towing it with, period correct vehicles, it makes me wonder, like, with all these shows and the popularity of it,
Mhm.
maybe there should be like for Cars and Coffee, there should be invites for people to tow in trailers. Granted, you're taking 2 spots if it's tandem or whatever, but like,
Right.
I think that would be cool because the Ventura Cars and Coffee, they'd fit right in. I mean, we have a fire truck, like an old 60s or 70s
Oh,
fire
that's
truck.
Spencer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trailers and tea.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think the trailer people drink coffee, dude. We're Americans here. Maybe if they're British.
I'm just trying to be
English.
illiterate, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean,
Cars and coffee.
but it just makes
trailers
me
and
wonder
tea.
because you've got to work on the trailer like a car.
Mhm.
It's on wheels, so
Yeah, yeah.
it has to be registered, has to have a license plate or whatever. So it is a vehicle, it just doesn't have a motor per se.
Yeah.
So I've taken my trailer and vintage car to car shows, and it's hilarious. People will walk right past the cars because they see a trailer there.
Yeah.
And trailer people, unlike car people obviously don't want you inside their car. Trailer people want you inside their trailer.
Yeah.
That's where the fun is, right? Yeah.
Well, I think that's where you can do the ultimate flex, right?
Yeah.
Like, look at what I got. Put your ass in that seat.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I think we need to do a go around here. Now, David owns multiple trailers, right?
Correct.
I've owned 2 trailers. Gabe?
3. I've had 3. 2 enclosed and 1 open trailer that I still have.
Okay.
Yeah.
And CJ?
If I slept in a BMW 2002, does that count?
No, that doesn't count.
Then I haven't had
That
one.
barely
Yeah.
counts as a
Haven't
car.
had a trailer. So Beth has never been like, we should take the kids camping and so on.
But
Yeah,
wait, this is another question. So I've had trailers. There've been car trailers, so
Yeah.
you couldn't live. I definitely couldn't live in.
Yeah,
any of the
I was
trailers
talking
I had.
RV trailers.
So,
but,
like,
yeah.
so is there a, as being you're the expert of it, like, so I'm not going to pull up on my Hallmark trailer, my vintage Hallmark trailer, or my car hauler. What qualifies a car hauler trailer that I think is a trailer versus what you qualify as a trailer?
Big time. Nah, get out of here.
If
No.
I put a porta potty in my trailer, does that count?
This is real people.
Got it.
Real trailers.
You're
Yeah,
just being
yeah.
utilitarian there.
So,
Yeah.
so like toy haulers don't count.
No,
Nah.
no.
Got
no.
it. Okay.
I
Just
agree.
think of like a birch interior, think of marmoleum floor,
Okay, so
this
it's-
kind of thing.
Basically, if I'm not mistaken, this is all mid-century modern trailers. That's really what it should be, right?
Yeah.
That's the sweet spot.
Because I'm
Correct.
all about mid-century modern. My house is mid-century modern. I love it,
Oh, wow.
and I love Airstream trailers. I just think they're crazy how much they cost, but it just seems to me that that's all mid-century modern. So
Yeah.
and I'm sure there's many other brands that I don't know about because I'm trailer illiterate.
That's for another show.
Yeah, but there's a lot of them that are mid-century modern style, right? Like the
Correct.
Airstream, right? Okay,
Mhm.
so that's
Yep.
easy. I don't know these things. I'm learning this as we go here.
I think you're talking yourself into getting a trailer.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
guys are trying to talk me
you
into
don't need
getting
to
a
convince
wagon.
me to get. If I just need the room for the trailer, I have to keep my trailer at another place because my shop's too full of cars.
You got a big driveway. Come on.
Yeah, well, I also have a dually sitting in it right
Yeah,
now.
that's
So
true. Well, all the more reason you should get a trailer. You got something to pull it with.
One of the vintage trailers, I would even, I guess it's a vintage trailer, the one from the 1927.
Mhm.
That has an amazing story behind it. Talk about that one a little bit.
So in the museum, and it's for sale, we have a 1927 Holt travel trailer. No one's ever heard of a Holt because there's only one ever made.
Oh, wow.
And it was a guy in Pennsylvania, was an entrepreneur, and he decided he was going to build a trailer. They called them house cars or auto camping back then.
Yeah, I was about to say, the trailer didn't seem to
Yeah,
fit when
yeah.
you see it.
And the interior looks like a parlor,
Oh, that's cool.
and the back of it has a vestibule like a train, because that's what people knew
That's
back then.
cool.
And he built this bit by bit, handmade, and then the Depression hit in 1929.
Yeah.
And so it was obvious that there was no market for a trailer which would have cost X to sell, and no one had that kind of money. So it sat in his barn in Pennsylvania for a long, long, long time. And in the early 2000s, a trailer collector out of Santa Cruz was in Pennsylvania driving around on a vacation and saw this weird trailer pulled out of a barn. So he pulled in there and asked what the situation was, and it was the family. The grandpa had died, and they were selling the property, and this was in the barn, and they pulled it out of the barn to clean the barn, and they told the story that this was built by grandpa and has never been used, never been camped in, never been trailered anywhere.
And it wasn't completely finished yet. Is that
It
right?
was finished.
Oh, was it finished?
It
Okay.
was finished, but it had been finished a long time before, like 70-something years.
Okay. All right.
And the children and the grandchildren remember playing inside it as a playhouse.
Wow.
And so through negotiation, they sold it to this fella in Santa Cruz. He had it lowboyed out to California. And then he did the restoration on it, and it is stunningly gorgeous.
It
in
is.
fact,
Wow.
the Peterson had it on loan for a while for a display. But then this gentleman moved to Florida. And so he needed to sell everything he had. And he had a trailer museum. It was his private museum, but he had a lot of stuff in there. So a lot of his trailers got sold out to private collectors, but this one he felt would be best if the Murphy had it, and so he donated it to us.
Wow.
And then we went up there and we flatbedded it down, and it's been in our museum ever since. And it is one of a kind, a beautiful trailer, and hopefully that finds a good home very, very soon.
Yeah, that is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go down there to the museum to see anything, you got to see that trailer. It's pretty amazing.
Well, then the other oddity we have a 1948 Studebaker motorhome. Now, Studebaker did not make motorhomes, but this is a 2-ton. This entered the world as a 2-ton flatbed truck, and somebody in L.A. put a camper on it, a trailer that it's overhang, and it is done to where it looks factory correct, and it is stunningly gorgeous inside. It has cherry wood. The guy was a Finnish carpenter. It has tile. It's been to Mexico multiple times on surf trips. It's been to Alaska multiple times. I've had that at a couple of Santa Barbara car shows, and people remember.
And this one has an interesting name, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. They remember the guy who built it because he lived in Santa Barbara, and when he registered that vehicle, he got one of the first vanity plates in California. The blue background with the yellow, and it's Big Ugly.
That's what it's
the
called.
name. That's
Big
the name
Ugly
on the plate.
Yeah.
front
Dan,
and
I think
back.
I found your truck and trailer, dude.
Big ugly.
And it has big, beautiful bay windows.
Yeah.
That's one of a kind.
Like the stained glass.
It
So
has,
it's a motorhome. It's not like a truck and a trailer.
correct. It's a truck with a camper on it.
got
So
it.
we
Okay.
call it a motorhome because there's a pass through in the middle.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
And it's
Oh, that's
affectionately called Big Ugly.
Yeah.
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 It's I mean, I can see where it came from, but when you look at it, you go, okay, that's cool. But from a certain angle, it is kind of ugly.
I think because it's a weird brown color.
Yeah, that's
It's like
maybe,
a putty
yeah.
brown.
Yeah,
But when you're onto something, when you're driving down the 405, which I've done in that truck, we went down to my son and I, my younger son, we went down to Fountain Valley for a car show a couple of years ago. So I white knuckled it down the 405. And I was going slow because you don't go fast and something like that. So I'm doing 50 or 55. And I'm wondering why everyone's going so slow on the 405 because it wasn't necessarily a lot of traffic, which it can be. We all know that.
Yeah.
But people were just with their
Gawking.
phones. They were
Gawking.
taking
Oh, yeah,
pictures
yeah.
and they were
Wow.
gawking. It's unbelievable to see it. And to see it going down the road, it's like, what was that? What kind of time warp am I in? It's
And
just,
I would imagine you checked the brakes on that thing closely before you jumped on the 405.
no. But I will tell you this: once I got down there, someone scolded me because the tires were all cracked.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
But I said, well, first of all, there are 6 of them. So
6
I
by
can
6.
afford to lose a couple. And the second thing, they have tubes in them.
Oh.
So
Okay.
even if
Yeah.
we had a problem, but it was obvious we had to get that fixed. And I actually took it out a couple of times that way. And then resigned to the fact that I needed to get tires. And that was very difficult
Mm.
I bet.
because those
Yeah.
are split rims.
yeah.
And the tires are a weird size they don't make anymore. And we finally found a guy in Pennsylvania who had them.
Because you needed the period correct tires. You couldn't just put on a set of new Michelins or
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
Probably not.
And so they were shipped from Pennsylvania out to the museum with the tubes. And then we had an industrial truck guy over in Oxnard put them in. And
It's ready to go.
now it's road ready. So whoever wants to buy Big Ugly, just let us know and we'll
David?
hook you up.
Wow.
David, you've touched on driving a large recreational type vehicle on the road and so on. I'd like to bring up something that CJ probably will know and Gabe will be like, what the heck are you talking about? The big trailer. The movie.
Oh, the long trailer.
The long
Oh, the long-
trailer.
yeah.
The big long big trailer.
Yeah.
Right. So
Did you ever see this, Gabe? Do you know what we're talking about?
Nope.
Okay.
So
Go ahead, David.
Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz made a motion picture. and in the motion picture they weren't Lucy and Desi, they were some other.
Just
but
a
they were-
married couple.
Yeah.
But they were married in real life. And it's about this trailer called a New Moon, which was a manufacturer, and it was ginormously long.
I think it was 40 or 44 feet.
It was
something like
unbelievable.
that.
And they towed it with, I think it was a Ford car. I may be
It's
mistaken.
like a
but-
convertible. It
Yeah.
was like a big old Chrysler
Yeah.
Ford convertible with like a 40 or 45 foot trailer, which is insane.
And in the movie,
Especially-
she's cooking in the trailer while they're going down the road, and she collects rocks and she puts rocks in the trailer, and then he's going down the hill, and the brakes don't work, and it's kind of a comedy.
And it's like a
thing.
mountain road,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like a little drop off, and you're like, oh shoot.
So there's a couple in Solvang, vintage trailer people. I know them well. And there was one for sale that was very much like the one in the movie.
Wow.
That was for sale on the East Coast, and so they bought it. And they went on a site to get a quote for trucking, and they got someone who says, I'll bring it to California. And so he put it on a lowboy, and he got it to Oklahoma halfway, and he said, I just don't feel safe with this thing. I don't want to continue on. So they found another person who would take it, and they met in Oklahoma. The other truck met the truck that was bowing out of the project, and they got a big industrial forklift to take it off to transfer it to the other trailer, and it fell.
Oh.
And it fell on its side,
Oh,
and it damaged the trailer heavily.
that's brutal.
So they were able to get it on the other lowboy, and perhaps the community that listening, certainly you all know of Funky Junk Farms out there in Fillmore.
Oh yeah.
So they took the trailer to Funky Junk Farms. And so Funky Junk had it for a couple of years and rehabilitated it. And now that trailer is on the vintage trailer circuit. And it's open for open house and views. So it goes down to Modernism in Palm Springs every February. It comes to the Buellton Trailer Show every September. It probably goes to other shows. But the interior of it is set up to look like the movie from the long trailer movie.
That's
You gotta
fun.
love it.
And the outside,
Yeah.
of course, that movie's black and white, but the outside is the color that the trailer was.
That's
And so
cool.
there is one running around, and it's right here on the central.
Well, and
coast.
if I'm not mistaken, Funky Junk actually, when you're walking through Funky Junk, they actually have the Lucy and Desi kitchen set up there. Isn't that one of their
They did.
little display areas? Is it gone
That's
now?
gone.
Oh.
So there was a diner,
Yeah.
there was a barber shop, a vignette, and because Funky Junk is also affiliated with the motion picture industry, but that section is gone.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
bummer. But they did have that whole section. And I remember being there. That was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and they were working on some stunning trailers.
Mhm.
The work they do there.
Yes.
Who's the gentleman? What do you know his name?
Stephen Butcher.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And one of those trailers went on Bring a Trailer, and it got over $600,000.
Oh,
My goodness.
And I
I
see
need to start
that.
flipping trailers, man.
Yeah.
No kidding.
I see the trailer show up in ads that have nothing to do with Funky Junk or who bought it, but that trailer is on the internet now, and people cut and paste the picture of it for whatever they're doing, and it's a 50s trailer, really long, aluminum, but it has a blue stripe. But the interior looks like a yacht.
Oh.
It's
It's an
gorgeous.
iconic. I mean, if you Gabe, you should watch the movie. It's really it's a really entertaining. If you like
Mhm.
Lucy, it's a really entertaining movie. But I remember watching that around the time I bought my first trailer
Mhm.
and being like, wow, drive. But I wasn't using a car, obviously. But backing up trailers, especially long trailers, is quite something, isn't it?
So there are two movies that someone must see regarding RVing. One is the Long Trailer, and the other is the movie with Robin Williams called RV.
Yes.
And-
Oh, for sure.
For beginners, you have to watch both those movies. One obviously is set in the 50s or so, and the other one is more contemporary. But if you still get into the trailer hobby after seeing either of those two movies,
Yeah.
then you probably have what it takes to
You're
be
meant for it.
faithful. Yeah.
Wow.
My favorite thing about people that get their trailer for the first time, I was one of them, is how do I drive with this thing? I remember way back in the days when we were racing up in like Sacramento. We would go to Sacramento, Vegas, going to all the drag strips. We were so broke, we borrowed trailers or rented from U-Haul, but we were so broke we couldn't rent from U-Haul. So my buddy found one like that was made out of like angle iron and like chicken wire.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
And we took it to Sacramento. Single axle. Granted, we were towing a Honda, but and my buddy's like tired driving, and I think I don't know where the hell Modesto. I don't know where the hell we are. He's like, "Hey, can you drive?" I'm like, "Sure." So we park at the gas station, and first time driving a trailer, and clipped the pole at the.
It happens.
took off the makeshift turn signal that was there.
That's very common.
It traumatized me for over a decade. I would never tow a trailer until my 30s.
It's a thing.
Yeah, and I was just like, man, and even now I still have some flashbacks of when that happened. But hey, people need to be taught how to back up and
Totally.
drive with a trailer. That's very, I think, important.
You were at my old house.
Mhm.
I used to live on a cul-de-sac, and to back my trailer into my RV space on the side of the house was off camber in a cul-de-sac.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
And I had a 31-foot trailer, and my truck was 22 feet long. So do the math.
Yeah.
54 feet. Now it was a fifth wheel, so it's not really that long since I'm in the bed.
Mhm.
But it took me about 6 months to be able to actually back up off camber, 6 inches of clearance on either side of the gates. So literally. And by the
Threading
time
a needle.
by the time I got rid of that trailer, I could come home at night, do it solo, no one back there with a walkie-talkie, no cameras, just do it, because it was just like markers, like visual markers. But as long as you go 1 mile an hour, it's it's when people get you see it at lakes when people
Oh,
launch
the boat
boats.
ramp. Oh my
The
god!
boat
Yeah, the
ramp
boat
are
ramp.
Instead of a lawn chair.
so
and just-
hilarious.
I
A
mean-
lot of divorces happen because husband and wife get a boat.
It's funny, Dan. Even in my neighborhood, you get some of the older retired couples or whatever, but they've got this massive trailer or RV,
Yeah.
and they park in their sliver because
I
they're
know.
newer homes or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And I was like, you know what, Boomer, you got my respect because
All right, Boomer.
because that is a total flex. Like you can go to the races and have the slowest car there, but if you can back that trailer up and park it in the sliver parking spot, man, I give you props, dude. That is talent.
That's
man.
why I make fun of people that can't parallel park. I'm like,
Yeah,
are you serious?
yeah.
And
It's
Dan,
like-
by the way, Dan's our non-car guy. Just I know you
In
can't tell
quotation
from
marks.
in
I'm a
quotation
truck
mark.
guy. I'm a truck
He says
guy.
he's not our car guy.
I'm a truck guy.
Non-car guys don't say I'm a truck guy. You're a car guy.
Maybe we'll be a wagon guy eventually.
Wagon. Well, we have another Wagoneer.
Mhm.
Well, no pun intended, but so Helm, runs a page called Wagon Estate, and he's all about wagons. He only drives wagons, and
Yep.
his phrase is, "You'll never catch me in an SUV." Which is great, and I think it's awesome because in the period correct thing with the vintage trailers is
Yeah.
most of the time they're probably towing some kind of wagon or some
Or a truck.
or a truck,
Yeah.
from that time period. But to me, that's the bee's knees. I want to see the Studebaker with the sliding
That's
roof.
incredible.
I want to see that thing.
It's actually, I'll send it to you. It's on our website. So you can, not on the West of Tulsa, it's on the Blue Pharaoh registry website, but you can see it on there. It's pretty cool. And it's like green and
Well, it's green mist,
Green
factory
mist.
green mist,
Yeah.
and then kind of a cream ivory on the top.
it's gorgeous.
Oh,
But
that's
to really double down, I found a little tiny RV in Texas called a trailer boat.
Oh, I think I may have seen one of these.
Now, these were made in San Rafael in the early 60s.
That sounds familiar.
It's a take on a teardrop, but it's not that shape, but it's the concept of you sleep inside and the kitchen's in the back. But it's fiberglass, but the roof is a boat.
The roof is a boat.
Yep. And the front at the tongue, the front is a little appliance. You can put a little like 3 horsepower outboard motor. And so mom and dad and the kiddos get in the wagon and they drive to the lake, and dad takes the roof off. So now he has a boat and he puts the engine on, even comes with oars. And then now dad and little Jimmy go out in the lake and they catch dinner, and mom and little Susie sit there and they set up camp. And
So you've got a convertible trailer when you take the roof off. And
well, it has a cap,
Oh.
so it doesn't rain. Or
Oh,
whatever.
okay.
But it's a common sense approach to where you need a place to sleep and a boat. You just combine them.
Gotta have a boat.
And so I
right?
painted that the same color as the Studebaker.
Oh.
And tooling down the road, there's another one where, why is everyone driving so slow today?
Yeah.
There's another one. There's another one where they're passing you with an iPhone and they're just like taking. And then that's another one where you go to a car. I took that to a hot rod community project up at the golf course
a couple years ago. Yeah.
And he was kind enough to put me at the beginning. And it was just people just didn't look and go. They looked and they stopped and they asked questions. And before you know it, you had a little
Huge crowd.
You had a little platoon of people just
Yeah.
standing around because they've never seen a Studebaker Wagonaire with a sliding roof, and they've never seen a trailer boat. And
Never even heard of trailer.
yeah.
boat.
I think I was.
I haven't seen the trailer boat. I got to see the trailer
Yeah.
boat. man.
I think I was behind the times, David, because with the aforementioned trailer that I had, I bought a fold-a-boat. if you know what a fold-a-boat is.
I can imagine. I don't think
Yeah,
I've
it's
seen
the
one.
same thing.
Yeah.
It sandwiches up on itself, and I actually built the housing underneath the trailer and shoved it in there. And
Sounds like a dinghy.
no, it was a legit boat. I mean, it was like something you'd rent at Lake Casitas, except it folded.
Oh.
And I stopped using it though because it was such a pain to like drag it out. It was just heavy and long enough where one guy was like, you know, and then the outboard motor, and it was just too much, you know. It's like, but I did use it a few times. Took the kids out on casitas, caught a few trout, you know. So
You know,
I guess
it's
I was behind the
American
times.
ingenuity. You know,
Yeah.
what you'll do to make sure you have a good time and things like that. So it's pretty cool. So it's the history part that I like, which makes the museum make sense to plug in there. It's the cars I like. It's the wagons. So it's my passions, things I like, combined with the museum, which is what I like, that have really been keeping me busy for over a decade. Yeah. And the cars and the trailers, that's not going to stop. You know, I have a stash over in Santa Paula where I keep all my stuff. And the museum has its stuff. I have my stuff. I rotate my stuff in just to keep the displays fresh and different. But I'm recalling all my stuff and putting it away.
You have a couple of teardrops, the smaller teardrop.
I got rid of that.
Oh, did
Yeah,
you? Okay.
So I'd had that too. You can only have so many things you can use. And then when you realize you walk past the same thing all the time, when you have a choice, then it's probably time to find a new home.
It's collecting dust.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. I don't know. I keep everything.
Gabe has the pack rat.
Especially
thing, right?
engines.
Yeah,
Just keep old dead engines.
Oh boy! So if anybody's watching this and they want to add to their collection, and they go
They
to the
need
Murphy.
to David at murphyautomuseum.org.
Okay.
Just drop me a note. And if you're within the sound of our voice, it's still not too late to come to the museum physically to see it. We're open every weekend through and including Sunday, July 7th, and then we're done.
And then the
After
list of everything that's for sale, is that any place that people can jump on and then
So-
on the website or?
Yeah, so right now it's at the front desk at the museum, but I'm going to put that on our Facebook site,
Okay.
which is the official Murphy Auto Museum. It'll be posted on there, and will be updated. And I'm going to add other things that are not necessarily cars, other things that might be of interest. But then we are going to have a very, very large garage sale to get rid of everything that's still around.
That is if nobody steps up.
If nobody steps up,
Yeah.
correct.
All right.
And you can also email me at that same address if you want to take over a museum, if you have youthful energy and some great ideas. Yeah.
Maybe there's somebody out there. I mean, it would be cool to see a young buck, maybe one of the import guys that might think that his, import collection might be
Absolutely.
something
Well, and the
big.
one thing we talked about, I know with the board we talked about it, and you and I have talked about it, that if somebody does have an interest in this, it's not like they have to take over that facility. It'd be nice to keep it in Oxnard.
Correct.
But it's very possible that somebody could take over the museum and move it somewhere else to where it works for them. And they could take the 501c3 and anything else that could go along with the museum. Is that correct?
Correct. The 501c3 is transportable.
Yeah.
You know, the mission of the museum of the 501c3 is in the charter. So as long as it stays what's in the charter, then it's legit. So if someone wanted to take a 501c3 for the sake of having one, because they're hard to get, and have a non-related use, you can't do that.
Right.
So it has to be a car-related museum.
And I know some people have talked about it and tried to make it work, moving it up to Santa Barbara. Well, up there, you're going to have the same problem, except, multiply the rent times 4. So that hasn't worked out. But somebody's listening to this,
It could happen.
that could happen.
You
And
never know.
somewhere else.
The clock is ticking, though.
Yeah, the car culture in Oxnard is huge. You know, for those who haven't visited Oxnard, I can briefly explain it. There's a lot of people who have what we're talking about, but then there is a huge truck culture.
Oh yeah.
There's a huge bombs and sleds and all this stuff. Obviously, lowriders. And the city of Oxnard has some shows a couple times a year, and they shut off the downtown.
Yeah.
And it is mind blowing how many cars show
I mean,
up
they
to
still
that.
do the cruise down Saviors.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool.
There's
Just
a
like
lot.
Yeah.
Isn't there a lot of rat rods in Oxnard too? I've seen rat
I mean,
rods.
there's everything.
everywhere.
There's everything in
Yeah,
Oxnard.
yeah.
Oxnard is like the sleeper, cell. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so much stuff that goes on. Car culture. There's, BMW has a facility there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Volkswagen has one too.
There's a Bugatti workshop
Really?
And yeah, most people don't know about it, you know, where the guys get their Bugatti service there because it's
Wow.
tied to BMW, I think.
Well, and would that have any connection to Mullen, maybe, and possibly at some point?
I doubt it.
Was
I
it,
don't know.
did Mullen have Bugattis? I
Oh,
thought-
sure.
Yeah, I
Anything
thought they
French
did.
was
Yeah.
in there. Yeah.
Yep, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So,
Mhm.
well, the invitation's open.
Yep.
And the price is probably pretty good. Just take it
It's-
over, right?
Just take it over.
Just
It's
take
you
it
know,
over
free
and
is
do
pretty
it.
cheap, but then you
Yeah.
get all the headaches, and then you
Yeah.
have to get it past the wife.
It
So-
costs
Sure.
you costs you in
Yeah.
labor.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you got to
And love.
pass the wife.
Well, yes, I had some explaining to do, but she's very sweet and wonderful, and so she gave me a hall pass for 11 years.
Yeah.
But the hall pass is expiring,
Yeah. Got
so
it.
now I'll be doing things around the house like I should have been doing all this
Yeah.
time.
Well, and I met her a few times at different events, and she was totally supportive.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
really
maybe
fun to see it.
maybe we'll start seeing you with your collection at some car shows and some cars and coffees, maybe.
Yeah.
And
I will. So that's when you run a museum, you're married to the museum.
yeah.
You know, because I used to do car shows, and I've done a few while engaged in the museum because that's, you know, part of our mission, and end up other people in the museum, docents go and take the cars. Me personally, I've been to very few car shows because I've just been at the museum on the weekends.
Yeah.
So I look forward to getting my collection out and sharing it with
having
other
fun.
people. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that'd be cool.
Mhm.
Especially that Studebaker. You got to bring that Studebaker back.
Yeah.
Wait, I have to ask, how does the roof go back? Is it manual, electric? How do
It's
you,
manual.
how do you like? Is it crank?
No, there's a lock inside. You just reach up and turn it, and then you push it,
Oh,
and it just goes in, and then you have to grab it and pull it back.
Wow.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
So go to
That is
YouTube
cool.
and go to YouTube and punch in Studebaker Wagonaire,
Okay.
Okay.
and you'll see an ad from the Studebaker Corporation of mom and dad driving with a boat being towed with little Tommy and Susie in the back with a slide and a dog. And they're going down the newly minted interstate somewhere in middle America doing like 65 miles an hour with smiles on their faces.
No seatbelts.
And that's how they sold cars. Seatbelts, what are those?
No seatbelts, right?
I love
Well,
it.
one last thing about a station wagon that I think you owned it, or maybe the museum did, but it's one of the best sounding station wagons I've ever heard. It was a 66 New Yorker wagon, the blue one.
Oh, yeah. That
Oh.
was mine. That was mine. I traded.
Was that yours?
I had a collector. I did some horse trading.
That
and
was
I
a-
had a Chrysler Town and Country wagon.
Wow.
It was a beautiful, beautiful blue
Yeah.
with wood grain. It had a 383 automatic
Yeah.
with gold tone radio. And
First
dual
time I heard.
exhaust.
Oh, first time I heard that thing start up, I was like, "Whoa!"
yeah, I cried
beautiful
on that
sound.
one, but
Yeah.
but I ended up selling it because I just ran out of space. And that is a very, very big car.
Yeah, it is.
And you just can't stuff it anywhere. You have to stuff it in a big space.
And it was just when you look inside of it, it had all these little period pieces you had strategically, like the old style. I don't even call it thermos. It was like a cooler. With,
It was an
Coca-Cola
old style
cooler?
thermos in a leather carrying case with a strap.
Yeah.
And then I had some vintage furniture I had in the back.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was ready to go.
Yeah. It was a
Wow.
gorgeous, gorgeous car.
I remember I walked in there one day and I went to go look at it. It was gone. David, what happened to the station
Yeah.
wagon?
It went back east somewhere.
Yeah. All right. David Neel, thank you for joining us. Yeah, and we'll see you at a car show now that you're no longer, in a couple months, going to be running a museum.
I'll be the tall one in the old car. You can't miss me.
I'm gonna look for that Studebaker.
Yeah, he's the guy who's slowing down traffic on the 405
Yeah,
even
yeah.
more than it does.
Wait, when David got
yeah.
here, I asked him how I'm 6'1", and I go, I don't look up to very many people. How tall are you, David? What'd you tell me?
I'm 5'18",
I like that. I like that.
and I'm sure the audience doesn't want to know, but I have a size 16 shoe
Oh wow!
that I've had ever since I was a junior in high school. So I played basketball, and the joke was I always get called for 3 seconds when I'm at half court.
Oh man,
that's good stuff.
Very enjoyable.
Yeah.
We've really
Great.
enjoyed
Thank you.
having you in West of Tulsa.
Learned a bunch of things too.
Yeah, great
Right on.
episode.
Yeah,
Really
Glad
good
to be
stuff.
here.
All the trailer
for having
stuff
me.
was so
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, when we do the West of Tulsa reunion, all the guests, we're going to invite all the previous guests for a car show here. So we're going to have to make some room in the back probably
Yeah.
to fit because you got to bring the trailer if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
bringing the
Yeah.
car. You got to bring the trailer.
That'd be cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Wow. Yeah, photos won't do it justice. You got to
No.
see that. You
Yeah.
got to see that one in person.
Yeah.
All
But come
right.
to the museum because after July 7th, they're going to be locked away in Santa Paula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
I want
check it
to. I
out.
want to ride in the wagon though. I want to ride. I want to
Wagonaire.
fold the roof back.
The Wagonaire.
The Wagonaire. Sorry, Wagonaire.
All right, David Neel from the
Yep.
Murphy Auto Museum, short timer.
Yep.
But other than that, you're going to see him around driving in his station wagons and his trailers, and you have so many other cool things.
Yeah, right
that's,
on.
That's a whole other separate show.
Yeah.
All right, don't forget, like, follow, subscribe. We also have our YouTube.
Channel.
Thank you. Boy, you're nailing it every time right
Well,
now.
you do the hand cue, so
It's
I
like
started.
It's like
boom.
the Vanna White.
Yeah,
Boom.
yeah.
Yeah. And don't forget, we have our tip line page. You go westofTulsa.com, click on the tip line page, fill it out, send it in. We'd love to hear from you and hear your story. Maybe have you here in studio. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we will see you west of Tulsa.